Hello and welcome to S1ap on Location, where today we take a look at a nearly forgotten track in upstate South Carolina that nevertheless played a pivotal role in the southeastern dirt track scene, the curiously named Confederate Speedway.
Away down south in the land of traitors, rattlesnakes and alligators, right away, come away, right away, come away. Where cotton's king and men are chattels, Union boys will win the battles, right away, come away, right away, come away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. Each Dixie boy must understand that he must mind his Uncle Sam, away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie, away, away. We'll all go down to Dixie.
All right, we are here at what was Confederate Speedway out here in Woodruff, South Carolina, right next to the small town of Emory. This track originally existed from 1950 to 1955 as a quarter-mile track. Legend has it that Cale, Yarborough and David Pearson came out here and made their first starts in just local Saturday night features. Track did have lights, as we've seen from some of the older photos. Those older photos came from like 2005, so the track was pretty well abandoned by then. But since then, it looks like they've taken everything down. It looks like there used to be, from the old photos, there used to be lights still up and press box and a few other facilities just left to decay over the years, but those have since been torn down. Track did see new life in the late 60s, early 70s. Actually in 1970 they revamped the track, ran it all the way through 1989, and it was actually a mainstay of the local short track racing scene in South Carolina. Ralph Earnhardt raced on the old quarter-mile track, but when they revamped it, they bumped it up to a 3/5 of a mile track. And this was just another track, part of the South Carolina racing scene. At the Piedmont Interstate Fairgrounds up in Spartanburg, that was long gone, but you still had TR, Golden Strip, and Fountain Inn, South Carolina. TR, Travelers Rest, South Carolina. They still do races out there every Saturday night. You had Lawrence Speedway, really just a vibrant, really competitive market for short track racing out here. The track met its demise in the late 1980s, mostly because it was just such a pain to come out here. When we came through this small town in Ori, right outside of Woodruff, there was just nothing out here, man. I think we passed one car on the way in. I think there were more shops that were abandoned than that were open. I think we saw like 2 churches and that was it. There was like one road out here, and that was the only way to get out here back in the 80s. From newspaper clippings, locals say they hated the racetrack. It just pretty much shut down everything during Saturday. They said they would wake up, they'd find red dust all over their house, and they have to go out and wash all their cars and everything else that was outside that could collect dust. So when there were talks in 1992, 93 about reopening it, they ran a few races out here, nothing happened. Place goes down again. They ran like one-off race in 1997, nothing came of that. There was talk in early 2000s about having another race out here, 2001 I believe, or just revamping the track. Somebody wanted to buy this property. Nothing came of that. Throughout the 90s, the zoning committee here in Woodruff just kept shooting them down. If you know anything about small towns in the South, you know that zoning committees aren't really a thing, but the county was just so against this place being shut down because they had to bring out, county sheriff out here to direct traffic and all. It was just a headache for fire and rescue, first responders, just having to get by this place, get out to it, having to deal with probably 3,000 rowdy fans in attendance and all that, and just for being in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, that is just such a pain to deal with. And of course the county just kept shooting it down. They're like, whatever tax money it brings in, we more than spend just trying to keep this place afloat. So that was what eventually killed the Speedway. Here in the infield, and there's an old light fixture that used to be up here, one of the ones that either couldn't be scrapped or they couldn't do anything with. They just hauled it out here, tore it down, and we're done with it. Some of the concrete grandstands that have survived the years. So this would have been the front stretch. We're a little bit confused about what was the front stretch and what was the back stretch. But the back stretch actually faces the one road out there, fittingly named Racetrack Road. And this would have been the barrier right here, just a mounded dirt with a fence on it, kind of like Occoneechee Speedway. Some cinder blocks here. I guess those were steps to get out onto the track. But yeah, those would have been the grandstands way back in there, back in that thick brush. Better look at the wall that was out here. As you can see, mostly just a dirt mound now. There's some more grandstands. I believe some stairs, if you can see way back in there. Yeah, this was no doubt the front stretch. I'm standing in turn 1, and that was the front stretch right back there. And as you can see, it's still been really well maintained. I mean, there's not any brush growing on that path right there, probably because of all the calcium chloride that they put out there, or whatever sort of anti-dust agent that they were using. Much like Air Base Speedway, when we went out there, the only place we could find was where the actual track was, about a path about that wide, and just calcium chloride pretty much just kills anything growing out here. So this place might not be fully overgrown for maybe another 40 years, but you can still see it in Google image search or Google Maps. It just looks like just somebody plowed it up yesterday and let the brush get over it a little bit and didn't quite finish the job. But you know, just a lot of these dirt tracks survive, and a lot of those asphalt places, they didn't need calcium chloride. So once the brush grows up through the asphalt, it just completely takes over it, and there's no chemical agent to stop it. But these dirt tracks, a lot of them persevere because of the chemical treatment they got. That's the infield, and most of the infield is still just wide open too. It's probably likely treated with that same chemical that they treated the rest of the speedway with, just to keep dirt down when cars are moving around, going through tech inspection, haulers are moving in. But even still, didn't keep all the dust down because locals said it would just coat everything and they hated it. This is turn 4 right through here, and that is the front straight, and this was the access road. Come in from Racetrack Road, which ran along the back stretch, come up this access road, come up through here, or go, if you were a fan, come to this, what I would assume was a parking lot back here, all this flat land back here, and that apparently somebody still owns this place and still comes through here relatively regularly. But yeah, you'd come up there, go up the hill, the ticket booth, take your spot in the grandstands, and watch a damn good show. One interesting story about this track that happened in 1979, I believe, and went all the way to the South Carolina Supreme Court in 1981, was of a driver who signed a waiver here and then went out in a race, got himself injured, and he didn't contest that he had signed the waiver, but said that the Speedway was still somehow liable. When I was doing research for this place, I found that one story, and I thought that was a little bit funny, that even back then people were trying to rip off track promoters any way they could. If they thought they got shorted somehow and they got injured, they were going to go out and get whatever money they could out of them. Well, that was everything from Confederate Speedway. Really everything that's left of it. Track didn't have a whole lot of banking. Whatever banking it did have was basically meant to keep the cars corralled in there. And guys who came out here, they loved the track. But the locals hated it, and even the people who did come out here back in the day, in the 80s and the 70s, did say, like, yeah, getting to the place was more of a headache than it was worth sometimes, especially if you didn't end up winning or getting any money out of it.
Well, that's about all that's left of the old Confederate Speedway, and at this point you're probably asking, why name your track something like that? As far as I can tell, there was never any Civil War battle fought here, and General Sherman never made it this far north. I don't think the people who built this place had any racist intentions, but back then and even today, there's a lot of whitewashing of Confederate history. Nobody wants to believe that their ancestors did something awful for no good reason, and the lost cause myth is an enticing way for many Southerners to absolve themselves of the idea that their ancestors fought an open rebellion against the United States, with the abolition of slavery as the flashpoint for the whole affair. And so, for many down in South Carolina at the time, the Confederate flag meant something completely different than what it means today. Nowadays, we just know better. Had Confederate Speedway persevered into today, it would have almost certainly needed a name change, and a lot of rebranding. With NASCAR's recent Confederate flag ban and other cultural changes in the country, the Speedway might have become the subject of yet another culture war in the NASCAR community, and maybe even for the US as a whole. But that's for others to deal with in their timeline. We get enough to deal with in our own. Anyway, I'm Slapshoes, thanks for watching, and until next time, y'all take it easy. Just one more thing before I wrap this all up, I'd like to congratulate my lifelong friend and cameraman for this episode, Evan Tripp. He got married this weekend, so go check him out on Instagram and send him a lot of love. Links to that down in the description and the pinned comment. Until next time, y'all take it easy.
The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitor and up with the star, while we rally round the flag, boys, we rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Oh, we're springing to the call 300,000 more.